Anyway, how's it going, Truman here? While Spy Family is running on the top of this anime season, there's a bunch of other anime that have come out that I wanted to check out. For one thing, I haven't watched the two other shows that are really popular, Kaguya Lover's War and The Shield Hero, or at least I haven't completed them, so I really can't catch up to those seasons, so Spy Family is like the top dog for like newcomers. And because anime seasons are jam-packed with mediocre anime, I decided to see one that looked promising, and it's Tomodachi Game. Now at first I thought it was a death game, similar to Battle Royale. I don't want to use Squid Game because Squid Game did not create those kind of death games at all. But a lot of people think it did because it's just popular. But I'm relieved to say it's not actually a death game. But it's definitely in that vein, more like a psychological strategy game. So we're going to go over the first 3 episodes. And honestly, there's not too much to say about the background as it's from a fairly new studio. And production wise, it looks fairly cheap. Take this as a nitpick if you will. I really don't like when anime start off with like a flash forward of what's going to happen to tease the audience. That's our main character, by the way, so we can assume he might win the game or at least come out on top of everyone else.
今日は特に頑張るね。
来月修学旅行で1人7万円いるって言われて。
7万か。それは君には難儀だろうに。
それはダメっすよ。みんなで行こうって約束しましたから。
みんな？
友達ですよ。
So this is our main character, Yūichi, and he's doing a part-time job in order to build up enough money to go on a school trip with his friends.
でも7万ぐらいうちの親父に頼めばすぐ用立ててやれたのに。
よくないわ、いつもそうすぐに上から物を言って。
許してやりなよ、沢木さん。そいつに悪気はないんだ。
So we're introduced to Yuichi's friends, and they give a little bit of banter back and forth. Now, one of the criticisms I've seen for the show is that they don't feel like friends. I can see where people are coming from, especially when you're coming from a point of writing. Like, you have to understand, like, why these characters are friends. You can't just use, like, the standpoint, well, friends do this, right? Even though this is what friends do. If you were to look at a new friend group, you could probably say to yourself, hey, these people don't look like friends. You're just all hanging out together, right? I think there's enough here to state, though, that they are friends. And since the game itself is about tearing down your friendships in order to get money, it'll show how durable your friendship really is. And I believe most people in this situation would probably betray their friends. Especially nowadays, I think friendships are very frivolous. I mean, we could just go to Twitter and see people betraying their friends all the time. But anyway, we're given this terrible exposition of these characters. I can only assume that they aren't introduced like this in the manga. Nope. But oh my god, if they are, that's terrible too. It's just a freeze frame of them and then a bunch of information. It's like, this probably should be introduced more naturally into the story somehow. We don't need to be told in a freeze panel, which only lasts like a few seconds, so you gotta read all of it really fast, that Shibe is a rich kid. We can already understand that solely because he said, oh, I would have lent you the money. But anyway, here we have Shibe Makoto, Shiho Sawaragi, the class president type. And it's kind of too obvious she's the class president type. She's not actually the class president, she's actually the vice president. And like, her father being a police officer could be shown any other time. In the last part of her bio, it says she's very dependable, but this is like the same thing of saying, well, I'm a nice person. Shiho could very well be dependable, but we need to see her be dependable outside of being told she's dependable. Then we have Mikasa Tenji, who, what is this hair, my dude? You have to get rid of it. Oh my god. What are you doing? But we have Glasses-kun here, who has a really deep voice. He almost sounds like Sosuke Aizen. And that's all I really have to say about him. Like, from an outward appearance, your first time meeting him, he's like, oh, well, there's no real impression outside of like his hair is stupid. And then we have Kokorogi Yutori, who I would have believed would have been the childhood friend because she kind of looks like that and she's got the big boobs and stuff. And now looking back at it, I believe this is actually from, now looking back at it, I think this is from the protagonist's standpoint because it says, I think she likes anime and stuff. It says in Japanese, anime toka ga suki rashi. He says, I think she likes it. Like, rashi means like think. I might retract some of what I said about the vice president, just a little bit though, because still, like, you shouldn't have this kind of scene. You're doing a lot of force, it's not even exposition. A lot of information that is important to the characters, like her being a fan of anime, like how much of a fan of anime is she? Like, a lot of people like anime now, but is she like so much of a nerd? Is that why she gets bullied? Like, that kind of stuff is really important. And to just dump a lot of this in a matter of a few seconds to your audience, which, by the way, if you're watching this on TV, you would not even have the time to pause this. Sorry, we spent a lot of time on the first episode and we're barely anywhere yet. There's a lot of stuff to get through. I'm sorry. So we're going to speed up a bit.
俺たちは友達だ。これからもずっと。
So to quickly sum up the next scenes, one of the teacher announces that the school trip money, around 2 million yen, has been stolen. This is one of the reasons Yūichi got a part-time job, in order to build money to go on this trip with his friends. Later that night, Yūichi gets a letter to meet Sararagi at the school gate, only for his group of friends to be assaulted by these random people. He gets tased and he wakes up in a different room. Now there's another important scene where Yūichi is being told what's important.
この世で一番大切なものはお金だよ。
世の中にはお金より大切なものがあるの。友達よ。
He's told by one man that it should be money, and this man is voiced by like a very prolific Japanese voice actor. At least it sounds like it's him. So I can only assume this is going to be the main villain because like he's a high class voice actor, if I'm correct. And his mother tells him that his friends should be the most important thing to his life.
俺たちは友達だ。これからもずっと。
And Yūichi throughout these scenes consistently tells us, these are my friends, these are my friends, these are my friends. And this is in the hopes that the audience will play into like, these are Yūichi's real friends, this is a real friend group. Now, for me personally, I can see it, they're friends. I can't say I'm really pessimistic in saying, are these guys really friends? Because as the story goes on, we know they know a bit about each other. Sure, it might be shallow, but at least I think it's believable. Especially when it comes to like a group of teenagers. I swear I've seen teenagers with even less in common and less chemistry. But you know, the characters themselves are a bit tropey, they are a bit cliche. So now my expectation is, hopefully, that they change these cliches and tropes and like at least twist them a little bit in order to make them a little bit more interesting. As if you watched enough anime, these character archetypes won't appeal to you because you've seen them 100 times before.
なんだこいつ。
昔の深夜アニメに出てた可愛い顔して子供たちから大切なものを取っちゃうキャラクター。
So now we're introduced to the titular Manabu-kun, who is like pretty much the face of this show. Now again, I think people might call parallels to Squid Game. I don't know when exactly this manga was created, so I don't know if it predates Squid Game. I wouldn't assume it does. But when it's brought up that Manabu is a character from a late night anime, I'm thinking to myself, this could have been introduced in the world way earlier. That way we can at least know like, oh, that's Manabu-kun. Like it could be playing on the TV, or a kid could have a toy of it. I guess it's late night, so a kid actually wouldn't have a toy of it. But still, like someone could have merchandise of it. That way it cements itself in the world. Instead of a character offhandedly saying, oh, this is Manabu-kun. It's kind of like how in the Persona series, there's the brand of the Feather Rangers. They talk about them all the time in like almost every game from at least 3 to 5. I don't really recall 1 and 2 mentioning Feather Rangers, but it's been a long time since I played those games. But it's kind of like that. If you want to introduce like a character like this, it'd be great, especially if they're part of like your world. To introduce them somehow naturally to show that people know about this thing instead of a character just mentioning it. You can call this a nitpick if you want, but overall I think it would help anyone if they're trying to like write a story and they want to introduce a character like this. Getting people familiar with it and getting an identity and then twisting that identity is really important, and it's really cool to do too.
ゲームを1つクリアするごとに200万円をプレゼント。2000万円を返すのもあっという間だね。
俺たち5人の誰かが2000万円の借金をしたから、そのゲームってやつをクリアして清算しろってことか。
そうそう、分かってもらえたかな。
犯罪だ。
このゲームに参加を希望したのはそっちだよ。借金額2000万円の1割、200万円を。
200万円。
So we're going to skip ahead just a little bit, but I just want to talk about the game itself. So one of the characters have stolen the money for the school trip in order to participate in this game. This anime kind of reminds me of a TV show that aired in Japan called Liar's Game. Except the focus in that one wasn't about friendship, it was all about deceiving other people. But there's a good amount of similarities between the two shows, especially with the idea of paying off one's debt. But for the characters here, there's really not too much to lose. If they could play the game, they could get relieved of their debt. But being relieved of their debt could also be at the cost of their friendship. Now, so the question is for you, would you play the game? If the result itself were to be the destruction of your closest friend group. I just want to make a little short aside here. Yūichi has some weird thoughts about his friends. The spoiled rich kid, the hypocritical, the sly, and then the sexy. One of these is not like the other, just saying. Something can be said about the personalities of the first 3, sexy at the bottom, so he really doesn't think too much about Yutori at all. Outside of that, maybe he wants to bang her? Maybe?
こっくりさん。はい、注目。自分のネームプレートを手に取って。 なす400万現時点でのそれぞれの借金額だよ。でもその数字は他の人に見せちゃダメだよ。2倍になるからね。口で教えるのは全然 OK。 10円玉に指を置いて正解だと思う方に力を入れてね。問題。止まった。仲良く5人の答えが一緒ならこっくりさんの手が上がるんだ。家に力を入れてみて。はっ、そう、1人でも答えが違っちゃうとこっくりさんは少数派の味方をするんだ。
So they're presented with the first game, Kokuri-san, which I've never heard of. But I guess it's some simplified version of, what do you call it? Like a Ouija board? But this requires cooperation between all of the members in order to get the right answer. And I really do like this first game. I think it's a really clever game. Finding out who's deceiving who is very engaging. Like, oh, well, who's messing it up here? Because all of the questions that we presented are very easy. I think even an American could probably answer most of these questions.
全員分の借金を1人で背負うんだ。友達を疑わないこと。ハッピーにこっくりさんゲームスタート。
So now begins the game of deception.
日本で一番高い山は富士山である。
簡単だ。
第1問不正解。はいだよ。1たす1は2である。いいえ、不正解。
この中に裏切り者が。
日本は英語で言うとジャパンである。
またまた不正解。
So we're continuously getting no's for simple answers. We're given a little bit of a flashback, showing that Shibe has feelings for Sauragi. But obviously Sauragi feels differently and she likes Yūichi. I've seen this before. When I was in college, I had a friend group. Things were just getting messy because once they broke up, then certain people didn't like each other and everything became a goddamn mess. So I can relate to this. I can relate to seeing like a group of people and they're like, well, I like this one, I like that person, and everything ends up becoming more messier because of the romantic feelings of everyone else. There's only so many people to share, and dating in your friend group is definitely always a danger. I'm not going to say danger, that's a bit hyperbolic. It definitely is risky.
出題者は片桐雄一。
問題文が書いてない。3問目までの問題もこれと同じだったんだ。そうやって3人は自分の借金だけ半額にしていった。そうかよ。
もう完全に友達を疑ってますよ。
So Yūichi is given an ultimatum. Either create a question which answer is simple and get everyone to say yes while he turns it to no to half his debt, or he agrees with everyone and they move on to the next round. But we're also given 2 other characters out of nowhere, just 2 random observers who play a role like the audience surrogate. You got the one pigtail girl who is more of the observer, the emotional observer, while we have the emo bang girl who is the analytical observer. A bit too analytical for my taste. I don't like it when characters like make general statements about like humanity and stuff like that. I like it to be a bit more natural. But where are their name cards? Who are these people? Why did we introduce them just randomly in the first episode? What importance do they play? I mean, I don't know. But from now on, they're going to be here and they're going to be our commentators for the whole thing. Which, again, it's like, I really don't want this kind of character. I don't like this kind of character just saying everything and why it's so smart. I would rather the audience figure it out themselves, or at least come to their own conclusions, as these characters can paint your own opinion. When in a game like this, it's all about thinking for yourself. So why do we have characters who are going to think for us? On the opposite spectrum, they do add a little bit to the show. Sometimes they say things that maybe even I didn't think about. But again, I'd rather they just not be here or be a bit more passive. Because whenever the story comes to a standstill or the characters need time to think or perform actions, we jump to these characters explaining everything that's happened. Now, this could be from the sense people who make these shows, who make movies, this is very common in movies too. They say the audience isn't smart enough to understand, so you need to like explain it to them. It could be from that sense too.
まだ昔のあの人たちが少し嫌がらせしてくるだけ。本当の友達って言えるの雄一だけかもしれない。私が名前を呼び捨てにしてるの雄一だけなんだよ。雄一だけが私にとって一番近くの存在だからなんだよ。
I mean, Yūichi, she's pretty cute. I understand why you say, oh yeah, she's the hot one. But I feel bad for her because his opinion of her is the hot one. So it's a bit sad to see that she has such a high standard for him. Like, she really respects him, but it may not be the case for him. I mean, maybe he'll develop it later. I feel bad for her, because she's obviously the punching bag. Characters like Yutori are the ones I relate to the most, because I am someone who's been bullied for most of my time in middle school and some of high school. So I understand where she's coming from, especially being the person who just likes anime. People are like, oh, they just like anime, or they like it too much, or whatever like that. So I understand where she's coming from, especially being bullied.
1週間は7日である。考えるべきは心気のことだけだ。はいを選ばないといけないんだ。なんで全て終わらせようとしてるのか。借金額は並ぶんじゃ。5問目は問題が違うのか。
And so despite Yuichi's efforts in order to help Kokorogi out, someone is looking to actively sabotage their group. The person who's doing it is probably going under the assumption that Yuichi's question was the same as theirs. Unfortunately for us, the commentators spilled the beans to say that the 5th question isn't the same as the rest.
ここで正解しないとゲームオーバーだよ。私たちはこれからもずっと友達だ。
この問題が1問目だったなら全員すぐにはいが正解だと思ったでしょうね。
So this is the climax of the first episode, which again, I thought the game part was very engaging, and that's why I feel about most of these kind of games, these killing games, these strategy games, betrayal games, whatever you want to call them, that the games are the best part about them. I felt the same way about Squid Game. I don't care too much about the Squid Game's rest of the show. The game part was really important. It was the most engaging part of it. Because we can look at Squid Game, for example, where that first episode, if that game wasn't introduced in the first episode, it wouldn't have been nearly as popular. Maybe down the road, like a little later, because it was something more relatable, you know, red light, green light. People could instantly get hooked into it, especially with the easy premise of, I want money. And that's what a lot of these shows tend to do. They hook you on a simple premise such as, I want money, I want fame, a desire that most people in the audience probably have. And then they introduce a game that most have played as well. Red light, green light, Kokuri-san, I'm pretty sure many Japanese people have probably played it, or at least are aware of it. And the mix of the two create a relatable show, despite the crazy circumstances of the setting.
お前ら今日の沢木の下着の色知ってるか。
Now that was from the trailer. That's kind of one of the other reasons I was like, is this serious? How is this going to save anyone? Lo and behold, here it is. So then we have the opening, which I really love. I like this opening a lot. I would assume an anime like this would have a generic opening, but they do a lot of really cool scenes and shots here, and a lot of things that are symbolic for the show itself. The colors are really nice too, especially this with the hands here. Oh man, it's really nice. I only wish like the regular scenes look like this as well. Like scenes like this right here where they're all looking with this really good perspective right here. And this scene too, oh my god, it's really great. All the characters showing different expressions, the grabbing of the gate. But now part of me is like, are we really going to focus on these 5 characters? Like, are they going to be our real protagonists throughout this whole thing? I'm going to hope so, to flesh them out more. But by episode 3, I'm like, how much further could you take this? Because as we know, there's already another group, or at least group A and B, because the commentators announced, oh yeah, group C is done for. And I'm like, well, then we must switch parties sooner or later? I'm not sure. Like, personally, I would have rather this be a good standalone about one group of friends, you know, challenging each other, challenging their friendship. But we'll see where it goes.
俺には全部わかってるんだよ。金全額を心気にかぶせようとしてるって。さらにこのままゲームオーバーになって負けるのはこの中にいる裏切り者さんだ。ルール変更。再開ペナルティは借金が一番少ないものにかかるってな。
もちろんハッタリよ。
So I've seen some opinions that people say this is Yūichi playing like a super smart 4D chess with them. But I think really he's just calling out a bluff, you know? He's trying to see if the trader will jump to the move. We'll say, oh, well, I better do something now. You know, I don't want to be the one who gains all the debt. At the same time, he's actively protecting Kokorogi. I think if anything, this is Yūichi showing that he'll go far to protect his friends. Whoever's the traitor is not the friend, obviously.
俺はみんなを信じてる。答えははいに決まってるような。
My only thing is, how could there actually be a real answer for this? How could the answer of we'll always be friends be yes? Is that even possible? I know at the end of the day it's all a trick, but it is a weird question. Oh, will we all be friends? Well, only someone who can see the future would know that, right? That's like answering, will I be alive tomorrow? I could be dead by tomorrow, who knows? And so now that's the end of the first game, which I really did like. I'm very invested on how they're going to make the games more engaging, and hope that like the last game isn't like beat the crap out of your friends. But seeing how there was like violence in the opening, I'm going to assume there will be some kill your friends game or something like that. But again, I really do like how clever the rules are written, but there are hints of the characters changing to become something a little bit more than what they first appear as.
文面が消えている。
問題文の一部に特殊なインクを使用して
Again, we have the commentators to tell us a little bit too much. We could have easily just had a scene of Yūichi looking at the pages and them just being completely blank. And then with the assumption from the audience, we can say, oh, well, I guess they're gone, Mystery Inc. or Supernatural. It really actually doesn't matter. And that's one thing I don't like about the show, that they tend to over-explain how the game works. We don't need an over-explanation. Like, finding out for yourself is really the important part. But it seems to be a very common thing. Even Liar's Game had something like this. I might have to do like an impression or something of Liar's Game, because I really do like the show and I want to introduce it to a lot of people.
お前だよ、サラギ。
そうお金を盗んだの雄一だと思ってた
俺が貧乏人だからか。で親がいなくてかわいそうだから同情して追求しなかったってことかよ。
違うそんなこと思ってない
じゃあ他に理由があるのかよ。
雄一のこと好きだからよ
Originally, when I watched this, I'm like, she must have been saying this to get over him, you know, to trick him. Because at this point, I'm thinking everyone is a traitor, because anyone could be the traitor at this point. I think the one who's most likely the traitor would obviously be Tenji, the glasses dude, or the rich kid Shibe. Like, those are the only ones I would realistically think. The bullied girl? No way. And then Miss Halloween here? No way. And MC-kun? Of course not. Like, there's only two realistic choices to be their traitors. Another thing to note is that Sawaragi's debt has been doubled because she did in fact speak. Even that little gasp counted as like speaking, which is pretty strict, to be honest. It's really strict, but whatever. So now we have to go in forward knowing that Sawaragi has 8 million, or I should say 7,600,000 in debt.
私は何があってもあなたを裏切らない一緒に友達ゲームをクリアしよう
協力しよう。
友情を壊すものなんて他にいくらでもあるんだから
So unfortunately for us, they kind of do spoil in episode 2 who the traitor might realistically be, and they show Tenji. I don't know why they would do this. They could have showed like the shoulders of someone or someone's hand, anything, kind of give us an idea, oh, it might be this character. Or do what Danganronpa does, where they gray out the character totally and just make an ambiguous figure.
よーしみんな学先生と呼ばんかこのバカチンが
So this is a very dated reference. It's a very dated Japanese reference. I'm assuming most Japanese people would understand what it is, but for Americans, you're gonna just be like, why is he wearing a weird wig and talking like that? I honestly don't remember the name of it. If I can find a reference, I'll put it on screen. But this is what it's referring to. This is what it's a reference of. So while for people like me who like to watch old Japanese shows or Japanese media in general, it'll be like, oh, that's a cool reference. But for everyone else, like in America, who's a bit disconnected with Japanese media outside of anime, they're going to be like, what the hell is this?
今日はそれを全部打ち上げてほしい神様も見てくれてるはずだ第2ゲーム陰口すごろくみんなはこの個室で順番に陰口を記入友達ゲームに出資してくれてる視聴者様それが陰口すごろく面白いでしょ
So now we have like a deadly game of hopscotch, which is the only thing I can really compare Sudoku to, like hopscotch. But even then, it's like a weak comparison at best. And this will encompass this episode and the 3rd episode as well. And it will even seep into the 4th episode. So we're going to spend a lot of time on this game itself, which I do love that the game is pretty much watched by a Twitch chat. That's pretty funny. It's a bit hard to keep up with all the chat icons going by, but sometimes this is some pretty funny stuff.
陰口はゼロ第2回目の提出も全員白紙今なら60万円の5人分300万円を他人にかぶせられるってこと
So now we finally get an idea of like what the game is really about. And it's about pushing someone else to the edge. All in favor for the audience to say, oh, well, this is the most interesting one. And that person will get to the end and adopt all of the debt that the others have collected.
1枚白紙じゃないものがありました。沢木志保が好きなのは片桐雄一だ。そんな沢木志保は昔三笠天智と付き合っていた。
男女の友情を壊す最もポピュラーなものは色恋。
So just like I said earlier, romance is the easiest way to destroy a relationship. You got 3 boys who are interested in Shiho, leaving Yutori out as now she's the unpopular wheel here. And because these 4 are involved, we only need 4 wheels. The 5th is just a spare, so Yutori is sitting out now, which means she'll only build distrust towards Shiho, because all the boys are after her. Even though Shiho is the one being called out, Yutori is the one who will suffer the most. Once again, so she's again being targeted in this game like she was in the first. Whether it be inadvertently, I believe this one was inadvertently, but still, it ends up hurting her too.
俺は志保ちゃんの元彼だ。
やめて天智さん、私と三笠くんは幼馴染なの。二人とも恋愛感情。
俺は本気で好きだったよ。君のことが大好きだ。
At least I get my childhood friend archetype here, but I'm surprised it wasn't like Yūichi was someone else. But now this is giving us a reason why Tenji would have bad motives, in order to destroy Shiho's relationships, in order to have control over her. And let's be honest here, Shibe kinda doesn't really fit in this friend group at all. He may like the other 2 dudes and may be okay with Yutori, but in reality, he just wants to date Shiho. And I've seen this before in friend groups I've been in, where guys only interacted with our group just to date a girl in our group. And this is exasperated with teenagers. It happens all the time. I don't want to call this stellar writing, but at least it's realistic to a point. And people who say otherwise, I really say like you need to experience more friend groups then. I've been in quite a few, and you'll see this is a common factor which destroys friend groups is relationships, especially with young people. I've gotten openly slapped in middle school by one of my friends because I told him he was becoming a different person over a girl he liked in our group. He was becoming a worse person. This stuff happens. People become monsters over other people. You know, they kind of like say like the vice of a man is a woman.
お前の沢木さんに対する発言や軽率な行為にイライラしてた。頼むから少しは考えてくれよ。
頭のいい天智くんはなんで俺だと思うんだよ。
嫉妬だよ。自分だけが本当の意味でただのお友達。
Poor Shibe, he was really just told, you're in the friend zone, dude. But seriously speaking, Tenji is pretty much setting himself up to be the bad guy here. I don't know why. I don't know why the writing would be so obvious to set him up as, oh well, I'm the bad guy. Especially since in this episode we just saw he was eavesdropping on the other 2. Which isn't enough to say, oh, he's a bad guy. It could just be like, you know, he's a smart guy, so he wants to like hear in and be sure to watch everyone closely. Because he could think, oh, they're the traitors, maybe. But now he's opening himself up to be the bad guy so fast. And the show is doing it. Everything is pointing towards Tenji. Which would be great if this was just a huge misdirection, but the evidence pointing to him being the traitor is just too high. So now we have a show where the audience will be aware of the traitor, but the characters are not, and the suspense has to be held there. But if the evidence of the traitor is too strong, and the characters still haven't realized it yet, the audience is going to say, how have they not figured this out yet?
今回は3つの陰口がありました。実は沢木志保は整形だ。
さすがに整形ってのは嘘だろ、志保。
本当ならどうだっていうの。私のこと好きになんてならなかった。友達にすらなってなかった。
それは。
We're trying to figure out who exactly is the liar here. Or rather, whose intention is it to dump all of the debt onto Shiho, to essentially destroy her life? I mean, Tenji is the obvious answer, right? Shibe has no reason to. I mean, he could dump all of it on her and then just free her of her debt because he's rich, right? But also in the case of Shibe, would he even do that if he knew that she had plastic surgery? And that's an interesting point, since all of us have biases. We will accept friendship from certain groups of people that we are okay with. Maybe we don't want to be friends with people who smoke weed. Maybe we don't want to be friends with people who have done certain actions in their lives. But upon realizing or even finding that out, would you still be their friend? Would it make you not a hypocrite to still be their friend, even if you tell them, oh, I don't like this thing, and maybe they've never told you, just to stay your friend? While the show itself isn't like the greatest standard of writing, it does ask a good question of what exactly constitutes our friendships.
無償の愛情はあっても無償の友情なんてものは存在しないのよ。
And as the character says, there is no such thing as an unconditional friendship. We agree to have friends. We agree to be friends with certain groups of people. At any point in time, you can always take that away. Now, of course, with anything, there's nuance. You might have those who manipulate you to become their friend without you even realizing it. Gaslight being one of the most common techniques, especially in romantic relationships, where people take advantage of others by calling them their friends and exploiting certain weaknesses of people just to have their friendship for the benefits that the friends allow them, whether it be work, money, sex, or anything else in between. By the end of the second episode, the ending plays. I'm not particularly a fan of it. It shows some sort of insight of the characters. I think maybe this ending is a bit too early, as maybe a few scenes happen that we don't have any clue about, and it kind of spoils us to it. Otherwise, the ending itself doesn't really look that good either, compared to the opening. It's not as visually interesting, and the art is nowhere near as good. There's only one moment that I really like in the ending, which I thought maybe the anime should have been animated like this the whole time to avoid its more generic look. And it's right here. When it looks like this, the anime probably should have looked like that. Especially this would have allowed more fluid animation. I'm not sure how well the manga's art looks, so I'll probably find some screens of it and put it up. They would have been able to replicate the manga's art way more if it looked something like this. Now, if you're watching on Crunchyroll, there's this warning about sexual assault and rape. So for me, I was like, oh my god, is this gonna get really serious? But luckily for us, there's nothing too bad in it.
だけどこれすごい爆弾かも。実は心に言うとりは中学の時援助交際をしていた。
So maybe some people don't know what compensated dating is. In Japan, there's something called enjo kosai, where young women would... It's pretty much prostitution. I think that's the best way of explaining it. It's prostitution. It's normally, there's a lot of young girls, sometimes in high school, who will do... I've never heard of middle school. I'm sure it happens, though. They go out with older men for money. They'll take them out on dates and stuff like that. And of course, sex is normally accompanied with this kind of service. Now, I don't know how bad it is in Japan right now. I can only assume with the age of social media that it's probably gone up. But it's a bit surprising to hear that like she was doing it in middle school. But of course, there's a bit of a half-truth here.
いやー、先生驚いたぞ。
そんなおとなしそうな顔して少女じゃないんだな。
しべえ。
Just want to read some of these like quality chat posts. That's acceptable. Lol, how much do you charge? I can help you if you're in trouble, little girl. I'll become your savior, Yutori-chan. She did it, lol. Support. We need photo proof. I totally compensate Yutori-chan. She does look so innocent. I'm getting kind of excited. Heavy breathing. Serves you right. Hilarious. You could call me daddy. More deets, please. Amazing. Amazing chat.
毎日ひどい目に遭わされて絶対お母さんにだけは迷惑かけたくなかったから
You know, she kind of reminds me of Emergence Girl right now. If any of you know what that is. You know, with the pigtails. And then the compensated dating part too.
一つだけいじめを止める方法があったんだそれがお金を渡すこと
It's pretty sad that she had come to the conclusion giving people money would make them her friends. I can understand a lot like how people feel this way, especially if you have romantic feelings for a person. You might think, oh, shower them with money and gifts might be the way to go. Oh, they'll like me this way. I really get their attention. I'll get their heart this way. By the way, I just want to say this. Maybe if some of you are out there who are like this, do not give streamers or any influencers money in order to get into their lives. I just want to say that, especially since there's like a chat thing in this episode. I just want to say it now, since parasocial relationships exist like that. Do not get yourself caught up in a parasocial relationship with a stranger on the internet. I recognize a lot of your guys' usernames, but you have to remember too that I am a stranger to you. Like, you don't know who I am. I do appreciate all of your comments and everything, but we always have to keep some sort of boundary just to make sure we know and understand each other at some certain point. You know, it's just a responsible thing to do. For her, she thought she could really buy her friendships. You really can't buy friendships at all. But when you're bullied and you're weak and defenseless against the torment that these people put you through, you think, well, there has to be a way to stop it. And if this makes them smile and stop, then this is the way to do it.
気づいたんだ最初はお話しするだけだったその次はコスプレって言われてそしたら次は僕の好きな格好で写真を撮りたいって次は君に触りたいって言われたんだ
僕が今まで嘘言ったことあるかい？じゃあ
いいよね。
It's unfortunate Kokure was pretty much abused as a middle schooler, not just from her peers, but from adults as well. And you know, when you're a naive kid, that's just going to happen, especially if you don't have anyone teaching you any better. You know, the guy got into her heart by giving her the material things that she wanted, and she also believed that material goods are what made people happy. And so when a man comes around and says, hey, I've given you a lot of stuff you like, I've never lied to you, I've never treated you badly, so, you know, let me perform a few acts, and there you have it. You know, he groomed her to this point. Now, just to read some of the crazy comments: dark past, private photo session, costume play, she did it on camera, lol. That clears it up. I want to touch it too. Daddy's here, lol. Jesus.
それでお前は。
大丈夫だよ。
So it really is like not what everyone thought. Like she was going out there hooking up with random dudes. She just had a really bad experience with this one man. And that's why like that trigger warning in the beginning was like, whoa, did she actually get raped? But the answer is no.
さすがにそれは信じられないって言うとるじゃん。
Again, more great grade A comments. Unvirgin, old content, obscene, give me back my purity. How about 5 big ones? Wow, you're such an adult, Yutori-chan, lol. What a bitch, lol. That's dark, no way. Was her testimony? No way. Trash. Again, it's weird to have this element, especially this early on. Like, I'm fine if it's maybe a little later, but now we have another audience surrogate while being a bit more obscene. All the while I feel is unnecessary, but it's part of the game, so whatever. I'll let it slide. It's a nitpick at best.
私まだ処女だよ。トリぼっちだよ。処女性か。先輩は大事だと思います？
童貞野郎だけでしょ。
So I don't know what to feel about the virginity part. Obviously, I'm not a virgin anymore. Maybe that's not even obvious. I'm not, but I can understand people saying, oh, well, I really wanted to keep it, or, you know, that is really important to them. I'm one who believes like sexuality is a strong part of us as humans, especially in modern day society. Like, you should understand like where you sit when it comes to like sex. But I can also understand people's fears, anxieties towards losing their virginity. So, you know, I'm in the middle of the ground. You know, if you want to keep it till like the perfect moment, I'd say wait for it. Or if you want to experience and explore your sexuality, I say go for it. Either or, I think is perfectly fine. But from here, this emo bang character who we still don't know the name of, Senpai is her name. So I guess we'll call her Senpai, and the other one will be called Kohai. Senpai here says something really good, which I believe reflects on today's standard of people, especially online on the internet, aka Twitter. I mean, it can be found anywhere, but mainly Twitter.
生まれてから何の過ちも犯さず、これからも絶対にしないと思い込んでいる人間は、他人の一度の過ちさえ許せない。
So she says, if you believe yourself to be a clean person, you'll focus more on the small little dirt. And I like this a lot, because this is the same as people who virtue signal a lot and then get eaten out by the own audience they were signaling to. It happens all the time, and it's funny that they showed a screen of a fake Twitter there. But we see it all the time where people were saying, I'm really good, I'm a good person, I'm a good person, and then they do something totally horrendous. Which is why, like, I call myself an asshole a lot. I'm not what I would call a good person. I might be nice, but that's up to you to decide if I'm a nice person or not. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm some great prophet or something like that, because I'd be lying. Everyone makes mistakes and everyone does something wrong. Once you come to acknowledge that you do wrong things, then the faster you can grow up. If we sit here and keep telling ourselves, I'm immaculate, I'm the greatest thing out there, I always help people, I'm such a nice person, but let's look at like nice guys on the internet. Nice guys are always the biggest assholes out there. Oh, you don't like me? I hope you die in the fire, you stupid fucking bitch. We focus so much on trying to be like the best presentable version of ourselves, we forget that all of us have a little bit of filth hidden inside of us. And once you come to understand that you can be and you might be a hypocrite on something, the faster you can move on and be a better person about it. But I thought that was like one of the best lines so far of these first 3 episodes. it resonated so much with me because it's how I feel about people online right now. They've lost themselves, they've lost control, and I don't know, like, where do we start or where do we even go to like fix these kind of things. It's truly troublesome. I think about it a lot. I think about how can we fix people, because the internet is twisting them into these monsters that they won't even recognize anymore. 10 years from now, what will the average person even look like? Like socially, I mean, socially and mentally, we're going to be broken. Anyway, let's keep moving on. This isn't about this. We're watching a stupid anime about teenagers betraying each other.
実際のところさっきの心木さんの話は知ってたの？
それは
守る価値ねえんだよ。そんな金のためなら何でもするような女。
私は友達との約束は絶対に破らないのに。
俺は君を信じるよ。俺が一番君のことを知ってる幼馴染じゃないか。
壊れろ壊れろもっと壊れろ。そのためにわざわざ200万円を盗んだのだから。
So now we're finally getting the real culprit. I'm going to skip ahead because there's a lot of filler pretty much to just reveal who it is. It's Tenji. Oh, by the way, Kokorogi likes drawing manga, so that's another plus in my books. Yūichi, she's the girl, by far. But anyway, back to the trader.
おいおい、なんて目をしてるんだよ、しべえ。これは俺だけが知る真実。俺は知ってるんだよ、全部。ずっと見ていたから。スペアキーの隠し場所も
防犯ベル。
二人の会話も。
壊れろ。志保ちゃんの人間関係は、そしてたった一人孤独になった君にこの俺が優しく声をかけてあげるんだ。
And so there you have it, Tenji's the bad guy. I was a bit disappointed that they revealed it so early. I was hoping that we would get it a little later or get better hints towards it, but at this point, like, episode 2 just said, hey, it's Tenji, and then episode 3 just is like, yeah, it's him. It's a bit disappointing that they just kind of revealed it so hard right away. You know, the show had barely just started. We're in the second game and it's not even over yet. And so much of the evidence is pointing towards him, but I mean, he's looking to manipulate Shiho to at least get her on his side. But you know, this kind of person exists out there. You know, he might be sociopathic or something like that. I've seen it plenty of times, even with like relationships I've had. I mean friendships, like where people will exclude you from your friend groups, your family, just to get to you personally, and that way you only have them to rely on, and because of that they have full control over you. I've seen it at least 3 times in my life, and it's not a nice thing. And to me, it's like, how can people even act like this, like realistically? I'm like, it's just pure evil to me. Obviously he's not like murdering anyone, but still, like, it's really wicked. How can someone just do this to anyone, destroy their relationships just to manipulate them? I can't even imagine it. So now Tenji is our bad guy. Honestly, it's like the only answer. Now we know that Tenji is the one who stole the 2 million yen, but is he also the one who put them in the game? All Tenji states is that he wanted to destroy and break Shiho's relationships, but he has never stated that he started this game. So I think the show is interesting, at least for the game aspect of it. I like the games, I think they're all very smart. The second game itself is a bit more connected with the characters, which is a good thing. But the unfortunate aspect is that the show itself looks bad, or at least it looks too generic compared to everything else. It lacks any semblance of style. It's similar to another anime like this called King's Game, which was terrible. King's Game was atrocious. I had to do like an analysis of that as well, because King's Game is bad, but I've watched it almost like twice, maybe even thrice over. I keep watching bad anime over and over again. I don't know why. Then again, I'm the kind of person who watches bad schlock movies just for entertainment, so you have that. The music of the series is pretty generic, the opening being the best semblance of music they have, especially with visual presentation as well. Overall, I'm on board. It's probably one of the more entertaining series that's come out this season, but that's not saying much. It's kind of low quality. It's right there in the middle. It's like a 5 out of 10 or maybe even a 6. The games are interesting, but the characters are a bit bland. Maybe they could flesh them out more, but over 12 episodes and this is already episode 3. I can only see like where else are we going to go from here. So let me know if you've checked out Tomodachi Game. By the time the series is over, if you watched the whole thing, come back to this video and leave a comment saying like what you thought about the whole series. I probably won't pick up the manga unless it's like translated and released officially here in the States. I'd at least buy volume 1 just to check it out. Now, as far as strategy games go, the ones where characters have to betray each other, this is probably on the lower spectrum. I think Danganronpa is definitely over it. Other than that, I'll see you next time. Peace out.